Welcome to Nothing But Bet. This is Action Network's new NBA betting show. I'm your host, Maria Marino. Hanging out with me today will be Matt Moore, Chris Raybon, Gilles, Gallant, and Stephen Keech. We will preview tonight's games, get picks, build a same game parlay for Sixers Knicks. Whole lot of good stuff. And that is one of two winner-go-home situations on the slate. Knicks, Sixers. Knicks are back at the Garden and favored by 4 against Philly. Bets are split 50-50 between the two sides. A touch more money on the Sixers. Joel Embiid missed shoot-around with a migraine. Kelly Oubre did as well with an illness. In another game tonight, the Cavs return home laying 5 against the Magic. That series currently tied at 2 games apiece. 55% of bets are on Cleveland, 58% of money, though, on Orlando. The home team has won by double digits in each of the 4 games so far. Finally, with a 3-1 lead in the series, Pacers are 4-point favorites in Milwaukee. 71% of bets and 76% of money are on Indiana. Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard have been listed as doubtful. Tyrese Halliburton also questionable. With that, let's get into the betting lab with Matt Moore and Chris Raybon. Hello, Matt. Very nice outfit. Let's start with you here and get your thoughts on what you're expecting in this game, 76ers versus Knicks. We'll start there, and any picks you have to go along with it.
Yeah, let's do under 203.5. First round unders in game 5's last 10 seasons, 66, 46, and 2. Things starting tightening up as the series goes along. We're going to see a desperate team here in the Sixers facing elimination. Got to get this win. They'll buckle down defensively. I think the Sixers are going to have some counters for what the Knicks have done. Jalen Brunson's gotten going after he was really held and bottled up in the first 2 games of this series. They'll run a little bit of different offensive or defensive coverage versus him in pick and roll situations. And I have to assume that eventually they'll get a rebound. Like at some point in their lives, they'll get a rebound in this series. Knicks home unders in the playoffs under Tibbs are 7-3. So they defend really well at home, makes a lot of sense. And honestly, if they don't get those rebounds, it's fine because that just means more time off the clock as the Knicks keep grabbing offensive rebounds and just running offense over and over and over again. I think this is a coin flip series. I think the Sixers very well. This should be 2-2.
Yeah.
A lot of weird stuff has gone on with Philly to get this to 3-1, but I can't get to a spot where I think that the Knicks are going to close this team out. And yet they just keep winning, so I'm not going to bother myself with it. I'm going under 203.5.
I agree. The series has been weird. Last game definitely goes along with that game script of an under because apart from Jalen Brunson, it was a relatively ugly game. But Raybon, what are you expecting in this matchup?
This is a tough one to handicap. I'll say that. I'm going to roll with Philly here because Matt kind of alluded to it. This series has basically been even. Philadelphia has been outscored by 1 point per game in this series. And remember, it should be even less than that because they got screwed by the refs at the end of one of those games as well. So I just look at this team and everyone's kind of down on Embiid, but we've seen this before. Embiid at like 70% can still put up 50 points in a game, and they've won the Embiid minutes in every single game. So they just have to figure out a way to win, the 4 to 6 minutes that he's going to sit out because he played the entire second half the last game. I would expect him to do something similar in this one with them facing elimination. Trend-wise, game 5 underdogs down 3-1, 47-37 and 56% over the last 2 decades, 60% when the spread is under 9. So the trends favor Philly. I do think this series should be even. I think Philly's been on the short end of the stick in terms of some luck. So I'm going to roll with them because I can see them losing a heartbreaking 2-point game and you still cover. So give me Philly +4.
I have to say, I am mostly on board with this. I definitely didn't feel comfortable backing the Knicks to cover because of what we've already laid out in terms of this just being a wonky series. The Knicks only won by 5 in the last game with Jalen Brunson scoring 47 points. So I couldn't get on board with Knicks covering. Now, as far as the Philly side of it, I totally agree with everything that you said, but my only like hesitation is perhaps Embiid like running out of gas, which we definitely saw in the last game. And so I actually went ahead and bet Philly +2.5 in the first half here. And looking at the last 3 games, Philly did lead at half 2 of 3. The one that they didn't, they were only down 3. Game 1, I kind of tossed out the window because Deuce McBride like went off in the second quarter, and also Embiid missed a bunch of time going out with that injury. But as I mentioned, last game, Embiid just not productive in the second half. Nice little nugget as well that Matt Moore gave me here. Home favorites up 3-1, aka Knicks, are 31-44-2, or 41% against the spread in the first half. So I could easily see Philly giving that inspired effort. But what has served the Knicks well this whole series, regardless of what the officiating, all that, like their toughness, their grit, like, and I could see those, those 50-50 balls, like all those things coming into play in the second half where they're just like, we just want it more. We're just going to be tougher and grittier, and we're going to close this out on our home floor. Now, Matt, I feel like you kind of took this thinking combined with us, not necessarily loving Knicks against the spread, and you have been interested in a double result here. The Sixers money line first half, Knicks money line second half. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so look, I think that this tracks really well, right? Where we see this trend where the Sixers, the teams that are favorites up 3-1 are only 41% ATS, as you mentioned. That leans us towards this kind of outcome. I'll also mention this that goes along with Chris's Philly +4 play. Usually we go to the Matt Mitchell rule, which is teams in the playoffs that cover as dogs win outright a huge percentage of the time. Guess when they don't in this spot? Only 43% straight up winners, dogs, when they cover in these game 5s. So like fascinating kind of spot here for this kind of an opportunity for us to get in on. Sixers first half, Knicks full game. Sixers come out, they're going to battle, they're going to play with desperation, and then they're going to run out of steam. And they're going to have what happened to them in the last game, all throughout the series, where the Knicks are able to just find a way in the end to get the win. If we go in that direction, I think we're going to get a lot better value on our notorious SGP.
Yes, exactly. You said it. The notorious SGP, which we are building throughout the show. That gives us our first leg of the parlay. I felt like it was like, I don't know, I felt like this is a little spicy. Raybon, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. That was a great nugget about, that, because usually I agree. I think, if you're taking a dog, they're going to cover more often than not. But so it's a great nugget about how in this spot, dogs tend to cover but not win. But that kind of makes sense because you have these really closely contested games. I mean, we've seen that with the the Lakers and the Nuggets. You needed the Murray game winner. So I wouldn't be surprised again if Philly loses a heartbreaker.
All right. Well, we've said enough about this game. Let's move on to Magic Cavaliers. This is a series this is another one that's a little bit surprising. I think we all kind of expect Cleveland to win. But what happened in Orlando was a bit troubling. That being said, Raybon, what are your thoughts for this game?
Yeah, I'm going with Cleveland's team total under 102.5. And I agree. I think what happened in Orlando is not just, okay, the home court flipped and, now Orlando's blowing them out and now things will go back to normal in Cleveland. Because remember, Orlando's a young team. They don't have much playoff experience. So they were still getting their bearings in those first 2 games. And I think they really started to figure things out. Meanwhile, this Cleveland team in the 4 games, 97, 96, 83, and 89 points scored. So they're averaging 91.3. They haven't topped 97 even in the wins. Last playoffs, they only topped 97 once in 5 games in that loss to the Knicks. So in 9 playoff games under Bickerstaff, they've topped 97 points only once. So I think that this is, I don't feel great about Cleveland. I think Orlando may mess around and win this game. I think people may be surprised with how well Orlando plays, because I'm just a little bit concerned out of what I've seen out of Bickerstaff and just some of the adjustments and just some of the, the mentality of these Cleveland players. I mean, Garland, he knows he needs to shoot more, and yet he always just doesn't. So I just worry about this Cleveland offense. Donovan Mitchell against the starting 1, 2, and 3 for the Magic, Suggs, Harris, and Wagner, 15 of 41, 14 assists, 6 turnovers, and 3 of his shots blocked. He's not really getting it going to the extent that he needs to, and really hasn't in the entirety of his playoff career with the Cavs. So I just see a lot of red flags with Cleveland. I wouldn't want to lay the points here, but I do like kind of fading them this way, going under their team total.
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. You've had some issues with JB Bickerstaff coaching in the playoffs. Is that correct?
This guy, I want such good things for JB. I want better for him, but man, they had such a golden opportunity to actually wipe away some of those playoff demons, and instead they just completely wet the bed in Orlando. And I kind of lean towards Chris. I think that the Magic are live here to win the series and steal it, which is just going to be an embarrassment for the Cavaliers. I like the over 201.5 here. And the reason I like it is there's a bunch of pathways to get this. We got a low number, right? We've seen some action move this back up towards the over here. Action Network app, we're tracking 51% of the tickets on the under, but 81% of the money on the over. So the under's actually getting tickets, the over is getting the money, and we're tracking sharp action on the over in that one as well. So I think there's a good chance that the market's kind of aware of how this dynamic is going. Mostly, I think the Magic couldn't score in games 1 and 2 at all. And that's a young team in a playoff environment on the road getting shook. They come home, they get settled, and all of a sudden they start cooking. Now you have the Cavs going home where they've shot better all year. So we have a bunch of outcomes where we can get over this number. It's the Cavaliers make shots at home, put up a bunch of threes, make a bunch of threes. Max Strus hits 4 threes. Their team total hits over. Raybon unfortunately loses there, and that goes over. The other one is that the Magic, more comfortable with the scheme that they're playing, are able to get downhill on the Cavaliers and put up a big number themselves and steal this win. I will also say the Cavaliers' offensive process was garbage. It was hot dog water in Game 4. Their inability to really do anything. I just those possessions where I'm just going what are you doing? What are you doing here? No plan, no scheme, no tactics. There is no intention from the Cavaliers. That's a coaching issue, but also they've got a game now to maybe resurface, recenter themselves, and get back to playing better basketball. I'll take the over 201.5 here. Hopefully we get a big Magic game, and that way Chris and I can both win. Otherwise, sorry, Chris, I'm going to want the Cavaliers to put up some points here.
For sure. I mean, I think the Magic came in with perhaps a little bit less pressure. And that's why it was this golden opportunity that was blown by Cleveland, where now you let them back in, you let them get confident. Now it could go either way. But this is obviously the pivotal Game 5, and it feels like whoever takes this one is going to go ahead and take the series. All right, final game on the docket. We got Pacers Bucks. I'm excited about this one just because I just have to say, the Pacers are fun to watch. It's kind of been the thing throughout the season. Explosive offensively when they're making shots, and Halliburton is cooking and dishing. It's a good time, but obviously could have been better, could have been more interesting without some of the injury woes that we're seeing on the side of Milwaukee. Raybon, who do you like here?
I'm going with the Pacers. I'm not going to overthink this. I'm going Pacers -4. I just think this Milwaukee team has been playing above their heads, especially now that they got, no Dame, no Giannis but in that Game 4, without Dame Lillard, without Giannis, Milwaukee still shot 51% from the field, and they still lost by 13 points. Their defense is struggling, and Indiana is taking and making more threes. They're winning the 3-point battle. They're taking more threes. They're making more threes in Milwaukee. And Dame Lillard was 16 of 36 from 3. So without him, I mean, it's really barren. And I just think Chris Middleton, he's averaging 33.5 points a game, 10 rebounds, 5 assists over the last 2 on, one ankle. I just don't know if he can keep it up. I just think another blowout is coming. Like, I think Milwaukee's time is up here. It's gonna be kind of like last season where they just go out with a whimper here. So I'm going with Indiana here.
Man, I'm struggling a little bit with this from a spread perspective, because like you talked about everything in the last game. Like, I think it's a fair question. Can Middleton keep this up? But at the same time, he's been great. Even hobbled, he's been great. And the last game, like, yeah, they lost by 13, but they were also without Bobby Portis for much of the game. The game prior went to overtime. So I'm a little hesitant. Like, Bucks are desperate. I heard Jay Money on the Buckets podcast call it a desperation spot. I worry a little bit about the shooting variance. What do you say, Matt?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to ride with Bucks on the money line here. I know this sounds crazy, and I don't disagree with Chris's analysis, and it's entirely possible that the Bucks just 1-2-3 Cancun this. But here's the deal. Pacers shot the absolute lights out in game 4. Like, everyone that watched that game, like, Miles Turner was red hot. And to be fair, like, that's part of the Pacers' entire offensive scheme. Great shooters, lots of offense. But teams in the playoffs, after they shoot 50% from 3 and are on the road in the following game, 41 and 72, just 36% straight up. They are 53, 59 and 1 ATS, 47%. The under hits more routinely at 47% since 2003. So, look, this is a new era with offensive shooting. I get that, but I'm willing to go ahead and take it here with the Bucks at home, trying to extend the series. I think this team is tough. I think this team is still viable. The Bucks played well for long stretches of that game. And really, when you look at it, the only reason they didn't cover the 10, which, by the way, that sucked, was largely because they were on the road. And the Pacers had all that home shooting and were able to go ahead and get it going. This Pacers team is still figuring itself out in the playoffs, and that's why they haven't looked necessarily dominant. And this is why it's such a good series for them, is to figure out who they are in the playoffs and kind of adjust to it. But I think there's a very good chance that the Bucks are able to steal this one and push this back to Indy for game 6. I don't think Indy is ready for a closeout game. So I'll go ahead and I'll take the Bucks here, plus 154.
As usual, you're braver than I am, Matt. Like, I'm not going to go as far as...
Or dumber. That's the other option on that.
to go Bucks money line here. But look, I could see a few different scenarios here. And like the Pacers in game 1 shooting looked like a completely different team than, any other game in the series. All right, we got to move on, keep this thing rolling. But Raybon, thanks for stopping by. Matt, you're going to stick around. So thanks, guys. Check out some of tonight's notable player props. After a Knicks playoff franchise record 47 points on Sunday, Jalen Brunson's points prop is at 33.5 or so. Tyrese Halliburton has easily the highest assist prop on the board. That's at 10.5. He had 4 last game. And Donovan Mitchell's prop for 3-pointers made is at 2.5. He was 1 of 4 in the game 4 loss. Nothing but a 3 thing, baby. Okay, yep, it's time to bring in Gilles, Gallant, Stephen Keech as well. We're going to talk 3-point props. So Gilles, tip us off. Shoot your shot. What's your first pick?
Yeah, I'm going to go right to Magic Cavs, and which some people say I might have, by the way. I'm going to go with Franz Wagner. And I'm going to take under 1.5 3-pointers. Matt, don't roll your eyes. You're a dad. You know how it goes. All right, I'm going to take Franz Wagner under 1.5 3-pointers. It's around minus 125. And if you look at this series, he's hit this in 3 or 4 games in the series, but those look more like outlier performances and I just don't think the upside is there. Less than 30% of all of Franz's shots come from 3-point during the regular season. And it's the same during the postseason. He's just hit a couple of shots. Like, coming into the playoffs, his shot looked horrible. It didn't look like he was having a lot of confidence. Only shot 28% for the season from 3-point on 4.5 3-point shots per game. And from the All-Star break coming into the playoffs, it was even worse. He only hit this prop in 4 of the last 25 games in that stretch, around 16% hit rate. And the pace in these games have been super slow. A lot of half-court offense, limited shot opportunities. think this is the game where Franz Wagner goes under his 3-point prop at -125.
Love this pick. Cavs like to play 2-up and pick and roll situations, and the majority of Franz's 3-pointers came out of pick and roll this season. They're not going to allow that. They're going to play at the level and try and put more ball pressure. They're not going to get away from that scheme. They'll be sharper on weak side rotations in this game, trying to make sure that they don't get nailed with some random outlier Magic performance where they can actually score more than 80 points in a game. They're going to be focused on trying to get that done. Plus, the transition's the other area where Franz likes to take a lot of threes. The Cavs are very likely to score more, which is going to slow down the Magic. Magic have one of the lowest rates of transition opportunities off of made baskets by the opponent. So they don't push after makes. Cavs at home tonight, higher rated than making buckets. It's one of the reasons why I like the over in this game. So as such, I do think there's a good chance that Franz goes under on the 3-point prop. Great cap by Gilles.
Matt, just this ability to rattle off all of these, stats and figures at the drop of a hat. Very nice, very nice. Now, Gilles, you not only have 3-point props here, but you have some other little long shot props that you're interested in tonight.
Yeah, the 3-point market wasn't great for these games, whether it be under or over. Usually I like to look for a guy with high upside to go over, maybe even ladder, but just not a lot of opportunity on that stretch. So instead, looking at some other statistics, I wanted to do a double-double with Tyrese Maxey and OG Anunoby. And instead, so they're around plus 850 and plus 750. I'm putting only like a quarter unit on each. I'm not saying to put a full unit on these props, but again, Tyrese Maxey, he's averaging just under 12 potential assists for the series. Obviously leads the team in assists per game and potential assists. Did have a double-double in game 2 with 10 assists as well. I think if the Knicks want to have any chance here in this game, they got to cut the head off the Sixers here. And that really starts with Maxey. I think they're going to trap him more. That'll lead to more passing and more assist potential. But for OG, I mean, this prop is going down. This opened around 13-1 and then 10-1. Now it's going all the way down to plus 750 because OG had a great game 4, 14 rebounds in game 4, finished with 20 rebound chances. And now there's likely more minutes for him because Bojan Bogdanovic, he just had season-ending surgery. He's going to be out. Mitchell Robinson is questionable. He's likely not going to play as well. Could see 40 minutes again for OG. I mean, this is the Tibbs rotations where Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, OG, they're probably going to see at least 40 minutes each in this game. I think this has a lot of upside for this prop, especially from a rebounding perspective for OG Anunoby. So Tyrese Maxey and OG Anunoby, I'm betting each of them to have a double-double in this playoff game.
So, Stephen, I want to get you to weigh in on this. I know that you like OG's rebounding prop. We're going to get to that a bit later, but thoughts on Maxey as well.
So, I mean, they're going to need him to play a ton of minutes. I think the big question mark would be where do the assists go if they're not going to Embiid. But if the Knicks do make more of an effort to kind of get the ball out of his hands, make him less of a threat from three-point range, maybe he can get there. Like Gilles said, he is leading the team in potential assists, so I think the opportunity is there. He's going to have to get pretty lucky on the conversions to, I think, get to 10. And, this is a pretty low-scoring series in general. But I think at 8-1, there's a little bit of value there for sure.
Fair enough. Okay. As you know, as you all know, we do a little thing on this show called The Notorious SGP. We are building a same-game parlay for Sixers Knicks. So, Gilles, it's your turn to give us a leg for The Notorious SGP.
All right. So I did save a 3-point prop for this one, and I'm going right to Josh Hart over 1.5 3-pointers. It's around -120, -125. Now, he's hit this in 3 or 4 games in the series. I would say quite comfortably, actually. Like, he's hit 4 in 3 of them, and some of them even in the first half. Leads the team in minutes played, 3-pointers made in the playoffs for the Knicks. Also just looking for his shot more, nearly 30% more shot attempts in the postseason as a result. And his offensive rebounds are actually creating more scoring chances and more outlets to the perimeter. I also think with Jalen Brunson having that scoring spree, I think the Sixers are going to sell out to try and limit him as much as possible. Now, obviously, that's easier said than done. He is Jalen Brunson, but I do think Hart and even Dante DiVincenzo have a lot of upside from 3-point in this one, but we're going to go with Josh Hart for the leg on the notorious same-game parlay.
I'm a fan of this one. I feel like Josh Hart might actually be the MVP of this series, just like with how much he's contributed in like so many different ways. I mean, his 3-point shooting won them game one for sure. Like, he just makes winning plays, and a lot of that, just crashing the glass. But like the 3-point line, I don't think anyone necessarily saw this coming, but Stephen, any thoughts on Hart here?
No, I mean, the Sixers are kind of trying to make him beat them. He really seemed like he didn't really want to do that in the last game. I think he only got one attempt up. But if their strategy, the Sixers strategy, is anything like it was in the earlier games in the series, they're basically trying to leave him open. He's the guy that they would prefer to shoot the ball. So I think, the volume could certainly be there, and he doesn't need to do too much to get there.
All right. Well, that is our second leg of the notorious SGP. Gilles, that's going to do it for you. Thanks for stopping by, bud.
All right. We'll talk again soon, Maria.
All right. Matt and Stephen, we are not done yet. And the big storyline in the Bucks-Pacers series is the availability or lack thereof of Giannis and Dame. So here are some notable props for the Bucks, assuming their stars remain out. Chris Middleton expected to carry much of the scoring load. His points prop at 25.5. Bobby Portis will need to help on the glass. His rebounds prop is at 12.5, highest mark in this game. And Patrick Beverley could be handling the ball a lot. His PRA prop is set at 19.5. These numbers found on DraftKings. All right, back here with these two. So we saw what happened without both Giannis and Dame on the floor for the Bucks. Bobby Portis as well for much of game 4. Is it getting too dark there for you, Matt? You got to take the shades off. I'm not hearing you, Matt. You might have muted.
I'm just trying to stay focused here.
Oh, okay.
It's clutch time. I guess stay locked in.
Okay, gotcha. Really locking in. Appreciate that. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. So Stephen, what are you expecting matchup wise to be different tonight against the Pacers?
Well, obviously they should hopefully have a full allotment of Bobby Portis. I think only had 7 minutes in that last game. So assuming they get a full allotment of him, it kind of takes some scoring of the load off of Brook Lopez, who kind of saw his usage rate skyrocket a bit with no Bobby. Takes a little bit off Chris Middleton's plate. We did see guys like Andre Jackson get involved in the last game. A lot of that is because Patrick Beverley played less. Beverley obviously doesn't have like much of an offensive game. They need scoring right now. And I did think it was interesting, like Beverley's rotations. He played pretty much a normal first quarter. His second quarter stint, they pulled on after about 3 minutes. And right after halftime, he played about, I think, 2 minutes before they kind of pulled the plug. So it seems like they may be getting a little tired of that, and they may be looking for some more offense. So I think it's certainly possible we see Andre Jackson play a bigger role. I think, honestly, the thing that might be working against him more than anything is his age and the fact that Doc Rivers is his coach. I think he probably isn't going to be like super, willing to throw him out there more. Pat Connaughton was another guy. Connaughton came in for Beverley in that third quarter. It was Jackson that came in that second quarter. So I think both those guys are candidates to play more. But I think we'll obviously see Bobby, kind of make his mark on this one offensively. I think this is a great matchup for him. Indiana, real rough on guys who can catch and shoot. Kind of not real rough on guys who can score from 2. So I think this is a real nice spot for him. Curious to see if Brook Lopez continues to be aggressive, though. I think that's kind of the X factor there for them.
Yeah, I'll say this too. I think AJ Green might get some more minutes here as well. I think he's the younger guy that Doc trusts a little bit more. We saw him kind of tick up in the last game. The other kind of key point here is Malik Beasley stepping it without Dame. They moved Beasley into that starting unit, and from there, you don't need Beverley as much because you have size and some defense. Beasley's not as good as Beverley, but you have some defense, and they got to keep pace here. So they're going to shift to more creators, more wings, and then Beasley kind of takes over as the primary defender. Again, not good luck with that, but there's probably like an opportunity there a little bit for Bobby, especially to get going. He'll respond in this game. Bobby's understands what happened last game. I think he'll probably soak up a lot of those minutes and play pretty well tonight.
Yeah, I have to say, throughout much of the previous game, I was just thinking like how Bobby Portis must have been feeling like in that locker room after getting ejected, knowing that the big story going in was no Dame, like shorthanded, and then to have that happen was like, really? So like, I could definitely see him responding. Let's talk Knicks 76ers some more, because Bojan Bogdanovic out for the rest of the season. That news came out today. Mitchell Robinson also questionable. So what impact are you looking for tonight, Stephen?
So I would guess that Mitch sits. It seems like he's dealing with a very real issue. Bogdanovic already ruled out for the rest of the playoffs pretty much. The last game was, assuming that those two things happen, what we saw last game is pretty much what we're going to see tonight. Precious probably steps into that role behind Hardenstein for whatever that is. I do think Hardenstein's minute floor is probably a little bit higher, as well as the ceiling. I think if he's playing well and can avoid foul trouble, he probably can stay out there longer when Precious is the only guy that they have besides him. But yeah, I think without Bogdanovic, we're going to see a lot of Miles McBride again, 27 minutes from having the last one. I would imagine he stays in that same range. His points props at 8.5. I do think that's kind of worth a look. I think most projection systems are in like the 24, 25 minute range on him. I think there's an upside for higher than that. And the other big thing is that OG played almost the entire game. And his defensive assignment was a little bit different. They started Josh Hart on Maxey, which kind of allowed OG to play on the weak side. He started on Tobias Harris. That is a great place to be if you're going to rack up rebounds. So we'll kind of get to my OG pick later on. But I think those are kind of the big things to take away here.
Yeah, I mean, I think
funny again.
I think Josh Hart is probably playing 48 tonight. Like that to me is like one of the big takeaways. Is like Josh Hart's playing 48 now. Miles McBride's been phenomenal for them. Like he won game one.
Yeah.
Like as much as Josh Hart did, Miles McBride won game one. He was huge in game 4 as well. So I think there's a good chance that like he's gonna have his minutes. He's gonna play there. What is kind of interesting is like how small the Knicks are getting here. Like they just don't have any size without Julius Randle, and with Mitchell Robinson out, like they're down to Precious and Hardenstein, which is why again, like you're gonna see Embiid trying to get Hardenstein again in foul trouble. Probably increases the 3-point props a little bit as well. It'll be interesting to kind of see like how those dynamics shift if the Knicks take more jumpers, how they create it. But look, they find ways to score on the interior anyway, just with offensive rebounds all over the place. But it is going to be, I think one thing we can count on is that in a chance to eliminate, move to the next round, Hart and OG are going to play to the absolute bone. So you don't have to worry about minutes with them unless it's foul trouble.
Yeah, and Hart was saying today actually that he's happy that he played so many minutes in the regular season because it prepared him for this moment. And I think both of these coaches, like just as you guys are talking, I'm thinking about they have both had to juggle a lot of different factors with their rosters and personnel and just like in-game decisions and playing like how many minutes. Like it's one of the reasons this series has been a little difficult to handicap. But anyway, we do have an official pick from you, Stephen. Why don't you give it to us?
So it's going to be OG Anunoby over 5.5 rebounds. Like I alluded to in the last thing, he's just kind of playing, assuming they have the same defensive assignments they did to open the last game. He's on that weak side, more or less on Tobias Harris with Josh Hart on Maxey. That's Josh Hart's still going to get his rebounds, whether it's on the offensive or defensive ends. But him following Maxey moves him further, towards the perimeter. OG is kind of somebody who can help a little bit on Embiid if necessary, and just puts him in great spot for defensive rebounds, especially. I think one of the scariest things, honestly, for the Sixers is that even when they were able to get Hardenstein off the floor and have the Knicks playing smaller, the Knicks had a 73% rebounding rate on their missed shots with Hardenstein off the floor in that last game. Unbelievable. So I don't really see a reason why the Sixers are going to start rebounding more. So I think there's still going to be a lot of those opportunities go around. And I think OG to get 6 is a very good bet.
Matt, I believe you did some analysis on some of the plays that the Knicks were managing to come up with rebounds in the last game. And we know they're a great rebounding team as it is. We know Embiid's hobbled. He's not going to be getting as many rebounds as per usual. But I mean, I don't know what you even call it, but it just seemed like the ball was bouncing their way in a sense.
Black magic, voodoo, sorcery, witchcraft.
Yeah,
no, I look. This is a big part, I think, of rebound props. Is you can count on if it's a team that is engaged and locked in, as Tibbs teams always are, especially this Knicks team. They're going to find like the loose ball advantage in this series is wild, and a lot of those are rebound opportunities. So like they just get to those 50-50 balls.
Yeah.
And that's a huge, and it's just random random sequences, random shots, they wind up with them a lot. And that I think absolutely has the value on this pick.
For sure. And also, Stephen, you mentioned the defense on Embiid, where OG had some success, and we've seen his minutes steadily creep up each game of this series. But I do think throwing him at Embiid a little bit more, I wouldn't be surprised if Tibbs goes back to that, and that also kind of feeds into him getting some more playing time and just more opportunities to make an impact on this game. Okay, so that is our notorious SGP. I'm going to recap that in a second, but first, just want to say thanks, guys, for hanging with me on the show.
Thank you.
Pleasure as always.
All right, let's recap the notorious SGP that we have built throughout the show. Starting real spicy, 76ers first half money line and Knicks full game money line. Double results. That was a little bit of a joint effort between myself, Raybon, and Matt Moore. We also have Josh Hart to hit over 1.5 3-pointers, courtesy of Gilles Gallant, and OG Anunoby to grab over 5.5 rebounds via Stephen Keech, and odds of about plus 1,200 on FanDuel. It's that time for me to get one more shot up at the buzzer, and my message is simply this. Embrace the changing of the guard in the NBA. And I'm thinking about this as we see for the first season in almost 20 years, the second round of the playoffs, not including LeBron James, Steph Curry, or Kevin Durant. But I say to embrace this time, not just because we have a limited number of days, it seems, to appreciate some of the greats, but also I feel like we need to understand the window that we are currently in, where we are witnessing young stars like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Edwards, while they're still ascending, while it still feels like pure and magical, like before all of the potential team hopping and ring chasing that has kind of become associated with some of the more established stars of the NBA. Like, wasn't there something special about LeBron in Cleveland, or like when Durant was an MVP for OKC, the hope that Portland had when they had Damian Lillard? We know how that worked out. James Harden, even during his run in Houston, not to mention a couple of his Clippers teammates. Like, sometimes player movement works out and sometimes it's just a mess. So I just think we need to appreciate while it lasts, having some of these exciting young stars that seem to be in really good situations with bright futures. Like I said, we'll see how long it lasts. And that's a wrap on Nothing But Bet. For our entire NBA crew, I'm Maria Marino. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the games tonight.